Good morning. Hello, is everybody out there? Check 1, 2, 3. Welcome to Creative Mornings Winnipeg. We're happy to have you here. I'm Tom Sparling. I am the Executive Director of Creative Manitoba and a member of the Creative Mornings Winnipeg Steering Committee. We're currently coming to you from Treaty 1 territory, excuse me, homeland of the Ojibwe, Cree, Dene, Oji-Cree, and Dakota nations, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. I'd also like to acknowledge that our drinking water is sourced from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation, while many of our Indigenous communities lack clean drinking water today. Please feel free to jump into the chat. Tell us where you're from. Are you joining us from outside of Winnipeg? That would be great to know. And if you're from Winnipeg, maybe tell us your neighborhood. Excuse me. Oh, and if you're from outside of Canada, that would be even more exciting. So please let us know that. I'd like to also send out a special thanks to our interpreters from Red River College Polytechnic, the American Sign Language class, and that's the folks who are providing the ASL interpretation for this morning. Our Creative Mornings community is linked globally, and this month the theme is Liminal. And at this point, I'd like to let you know that we will have a Creative Mornings event in December, and it'll be on the 17th of December, and we'll have on the theme of Invisible. We'll be welcoming special guest Ashley Lodge, and Ashley is an application development manager at Neovation Learning Services in Winnipeg. She's a vocal advocate for accessibility and inclusive design, working to make Neovation's products more accessible to users of all types and abilities. She's spoken about accessibility at a variety of audiences, including the Prairie DevCon in Winnipeg and Regina, ConFu in Montreal, and she spoke at the TEDx Winnipeg 2019, where she brought ideas and foundations of digital accessibility to an audience of nearly 700 Winnipeggers. Remember when we could have audiences of 700? One day again, we'll have it soon. Ashley has also published articles on digital accessibility in Code Magazine in both 2019 and 2020. She'll be with us next month. That's December 17th, and tickets are available now on the Creative Mornings website. So please go ahead and register right away if you want. And the next thing I'm going to do is thank some of our sponsors. We have a number of global partners and local as well, but the global partners, MailChimp and Co. It's a global network, sort of like Creative Mornings. They have 20,719 members coming from 150 countries. If you're a freelancer or agency helping a small business succeed with email marketing strategy, check out MailChimp and Co. to learn new skills, build your reputation, get tools to help you manage your clients. It's free and it's easy. The link is up on the screen there, so take a look. I believe the link is also in the chat. There it is. And Skillshare is an online global partner for online learning. Explore creativity on Skillshare, where millions of inspiring humans share wisdom, experience, and expression in a learning community that will lead your creative journey to grow to new places. Quitting your full-time gig for freelance work shouldn't hinge on a single milestone. In Skillshare's new series, The Leap, the self-taught photographer Andrew Kung shares what to consider before he took the plunge into full-time freelance work. I'd also now like to thank our local partners. There are some logos on the screen, so thank you very much. We can't do it without you. And also the Winnipeg Steering Committee, who work very hard to bring these events to you. So thanks everybody from the steering committee, and I'm not going to say everybody's names, but there we are, and thank you so much. There's also a really exciting meetup that we'd like to talk to you about coming up. It's called Pixel Pals. It's being hosted by one of our partners, New Media Manitoba. This new meetup group is designed from the ground up to be a safe space for marginalized persons, women, gender diverse, queer, BIPOC persons, in order to get together to talk about things digital and creative. The first event is December 1st, and there's going to be a load of talented industry professionals presenting. So if you have an opportunity, please share this with your networks or come along yourself. And now it's time to have some music. We worked in partnership with Manitoba Music, who has presented these artists for us, and we have a great video. We're going to have two. We'll have one right away and another a little later on. Kendra Kay was raised on the prairies and has been hailed as Canada's country girl. She's had a very stellar year in the last little while. She signed worldwide agency deal with the Sakamoto Agency. She won the 2019 Manitoba Country Music Award Female Artist of the Year. She also won the MCA Fan Choice, which she's done now for 2 years in a row. She's amassed 500,000 live streams, 17 weeks in Canada's Top 100 Country Airplay, and earned a top 10 spot in the 2020 CBC Searchlight competition. The first song is Memory Lane, and we'd invite you to move yourself, get up and dance a little bit, or if you're a little bit of a slowpoke in the morning like me, maybe just dance in your chair. So, John, if we've got Kendra, let's see that. Thanks.
This ain't a song about heartbreak, no. Get off the stage, this is my show. Ain't gonna waste any time around on your goodbyes. A little bit more me, I guess. A little weight lifted off of my chest. I'm gonna go find out what's best for me, myself, and I've gotta do a little leaving to get back to feeling a little better than I have, better than I have been a while. Brush the dust off my shoulders, just about time to get over. Ain't gonna cry about your boy, my style. I'm done living in rearview days, better than ever, even if it's late. Heading on out, I didn't pack a thing, 'cause I left your baggage on memory lane. This ain't a song about my regrets. It's all about taking my next steps. Walking down that I can breathe road now that you're not around. And reaching back out to all my friends, the ones you never wanted me to hang with. Getting back every second I miss. Starting here right now. I gotta do a little thieving to get back to feeling a little better than I have, better than I have been a while. Brush the dust off my shoulders, just about time to get over. Ain't gonna cry about your boy, my style. I'm done living in rearview days, better than ever, even if it's late. Heading on out, I didn't pack a thing, 'cause I left your baggage on memory lane. This ain't a song about heartbreak, no. Get off the stage, this is my show. Ain't gonna waste any time around on your goodbyes. Gotta do a little thieving to get back to feeling, ooh yeah, a little better than I have in a while. Brush the dust off your shoulders, just about time to get over. Ain't gonna cry about your boy, my style. I'm done living in rearview days, better than ever, even if it's late. Heading on out, I didn't pack a thing, 'cause I left your baggage on memory lane.
Awesome. Thank you, Kendra. That was great. We're gonna have another song a little bit later on, and Mandy, you rock. This is great. Um, I love watching the interpreters during the music. It's just sometimes it's distracting. Anyways, I better keep going because I'm not the featured speaker and I'm blathering away here. So as I mentioned, November's theme is liminal. The Sophia chapter, which is one of, I can't even remember now, I think there's over 300 chapters of Creative Mornings around the world. And the Sophia chapter chose this month's exploration of liminal, and Sveta Seamer illustrated the theme. I didn't know where Sofia was, so I looked it up, and it is the capital of Bulgaria. So that's just to tell you a little bit about where we are in the world. It's quite neat that these chapters are happening all over the place, typically on Friday mornings as well. So I'd never heard of liminal before, and so I went to the Encyclopedia Britannica. Just kidding. I went to Google to find out something about it, and I ended up going down a rabbit hole on a bit of a quest to understand the meaning of liminal. And the Latin root of the word is limen or limen, meaning threshold. Wikipedia says that liminal is a quality of ambiguity or disorientation that occurs. One theory or one use of it was kind of in the middle stage of a rite of passage. So when a participant no longer holds their pre-ritual status, but they have yet to begin the transition to the status that they'll hold within that society once the ritual is complete. So ambiguity, it's also fleeting. It's also, I think, really it's about you get to a point in your life and you're moving forward, but there's no going back. So another way to talk about it that I learned was in a political or cultural context, and how during cultural change, liminal periods in social hierarchy sort of could reverse its continuity of tradition may become uncertain. I think is what I'm trying to say, is that everything is sort of shaken up and changed irrevocably. So you can't go back. You're just going forward. And so it made me think, well, wait a minute, we're in a liminal period right now. COVID, climate change, racial tension, inequality. In the past 20 months, we have really crossed some lines as a society, a global society, and we're never going back, I don't think. So where are we going? But the ambiguity and the uncertainty, the upheaval of political and social norms has been ginormous. I was talking to my daughter about Christmas, and she doesn't live with us anymore. And I said, "Oh, what about last Christmas?" And she said, "Oh, don't you remember, Dad? We sat around the fire outside and exchanged gifts because we couldn't come into your house." I was like, "Oh, well, that's that's some ambiguity and some changes to customs. Hopefully, we'll get back to Christmas." But one of the interesting things is that periods, the term, the dissolution of order during liminality creates fluid and malleable situations. It creates opportunity for the establishment of new institutions and new customs. So it sounds to me like maybe this is an opportunity for us to shake things up and really look at how we reconstruct our civil society. So I'm sorry, I'm getting way too deep. I'm not used to getting up this early in the morning, so I'm gonna sort of bow out and say this is the opportunity for you to go back to the tables and sit in small groups and have a conversation about what does liminal mean to you, and how can you use it as an opportunity? Are there experiences in your life that you've shared? And so please jump into the tables now and have a great conversation. And then when you're done, we'll come back and we've got a couple more things, and then we'll get to our speaker. And please share in the chat what you're sharing at your tables when we get back, so we can hear as a group. And we're back. I hope you had a very stimulating conversation in the breakout groups, and would ask that you please share your comments in the chat section so that we can share across the group the kind of conversations that you had. And I'm going to introduce Shannon Vaughn now, who's one of the Creative Mornings Winnipeg team. Shannon is a dedicated and creative marketing and communications professional with expertise in developing strategic communications, social media, marketing plans, analytics, and creating fun and innovative campaigns. I like fun. Might not look like it in the morning, but I do enjoy fun. Shannon is currently marketing and communications manager at Homestead Co-op in southern Manitoba and loves working for a heritage brand organization like Co-op, which has such strong foundations and long-standing history of community living in Western Canada. She's also a director of the Carmen Chamber of Commerce, and Shannon is going to be sharing our Creative Mornings manifesto and introducing our speakers. So take it away, Shannon.
Good morning, everyone. Creative Mornings chapters around the world celebrate creative talent, but also promote an open space to connect with like-minded people. Creative Mornings is guided by a powerful manifesto, which we read at every event. Here's the manifesto. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty, and hard work. We are here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections, in learning from others, in jazz hands, virtual claps, and virtual snaps. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome. The Winnipeg chapter has also made a commitment to reflecting diversity and ensuring inclusion for our events. Located in one of the most diverse communities in North America, we are as inclusive as we are creative, and we will be creative in order to achieve inclusion. We believe in the value of diversity of perspectives, audiences, and industries as we create safe events to debate and discuss what it means to be creative. We will celebrate multiple approaches and points of view, and we will be mindful and purposeful in building a culture where these differences are not only valued but celebrated. I'm now very pleased to welcome our speaker for today, John Luxford. John Luxford is a self-taught software developer, musician, and entrepreneur who is passionate about technology as a means of social change. John's first company, Simian Systems, from 2001 to 2011, was an open source software company that worked with clients such as Princeton, NOAA, TiVo, and Disney. After a decade immersed in all things web, John got a taste of working in virtual reality as part of one of the first VR projects in Manitoba. At this, John co-founded the Campfire Union with two of his best friends to explore the possibilities of this new technology. Fast forward a few years, and they're now called Flipside XR and spend their time making the world's first virtual TV studio that enables anyone with a VR headset to make their own live animated shows with their friends. Their mission is to enable anyone to bring their imagination to life and share it with the world. And now, Creative Mornings Winnipeg is thrilled to welcome John Luxford to our virtual stage today. Welcome, John. The stage is yours.
Hi, everyone. So first, I'd like to say thank you to the organizers and everyone involved in putting these Creative Morning events on. These are really cool. I'm going to do a tiny self-promo. I have a song that came out this morning. I almost forgot this week because my head's been in work, but they'll post a link in the chat, I think, that for one of my music projects, there's just a little instrumental piece. So hope you guys enjoy if you check it out. And I'm also going to let you know I'm doing this talk slide free this time. I'm not, I felt like after looking this up in the dictionary, and then, ruminating, this talk kind of became a personal one for me because it's a personal story. So I wanted to, keep Cam on me. And yeah, that said, liminal is a weird word. And like Tom, I had to look it up in the dictionary. And the definition I liked the best was kind of what he said, that it's the disoriented middle stage in a rite of passage. So when you haven't really figured out where you're going, but you know you can't stay where you are? Well, I'd say I was probably in a liminal state, career and like artistically, from about my mid 20s to sometime in my early 30s. So I guess I'm a late bloomer in terms of liminality, where most people have their coming of age in their teen years, like Stand By Me era, or that range. But prior to that, I was always so sure of what I wanted to be from like a really young age. I knew exactly what I was going to do when I grew up until I didn't. And before that, things were bliss. I was going to be an artist. I drew like a maniac. I decided, no, I'm going to be a video game designer, which now isn't actually that far off the mark. And so at that point, I filled notebooks and notebooks full of like video game ideas I had no idea how to make. Then I became absolutely sure I was going to be a writer, and I wrote hundreds of pages of crap, like really angsty teen poetry, like reams of like Stephen King, like knockoff short stories, like tons of it. Then I discovered the guitar, and that was it. I was going to be a rock star, and no two ways about it. And then I started learning to code, make software, and I was going to be an entrepreneur. I decided that's it. I'm going to build a big company and I'm going to change the world. And each time I never really saw another option for myself, and I never really questioned why I kept flipping from thing to thing. That just didn't occur to myself then. I was always so passionate about what I wanted to do that I always had the answer to, what do you want to be when you grow up, before I actually asked the question. And I didn't really realize that was a problem until two things happened. First, I discovered you can audit courses for free at the university after registration was a pain because I was out of province, and long story. I started sitting in on English and philosophy courses, and in true form, I went all in. I bought all the books, I did all the assignments and tests. I just didn't hand them in. So the other thing was the economic downturn in 2008, the Great Recession. In that 1 year, I had more companies fail to pay, cancel contracts, or bail on me than in all previous 7 years in business combined, and that really sucked. But it wasn't so much the money, but philosophy had me starting asking questions that I hadn't been asking myself before, and I had this realization that I really hated my job. But I had these big responsibilities. So I couldn't just quit. I had clients, I had people working for me, people depended on me. I felt really trapped. And one day I remember walking over the Osborne Bridge, kind of brooding over what I was going to do, when that question popped back in my head. What do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, great, I'm already grown up. I felt like this was mocking me. I was already here, and what I was doing was definitely not right. And I had no idea what right was. And I realized I had no idea how to answer that question. I probably looked like I was having a panic attack on that bridge. Seriously, I stopped. I was like, oh geez, it really hit me. Like, it was a visceral moment. And because it was terrifying to realize that I was sleepwalking all this time when I thought I'd been so sure of myself. And so that feeling of dread kind of carried for days and days, and kind of turned into a full-blown existential crisis. After about a week, I realized I wasn't going to figure this out anytime soon, which scared me even more. After a while, though, I kind of got used to the idea of letting that question mark hang in the air unanswered. And slowly, over time, that uncertainty kind of started to change, and it became possibility. I wasn't quite 30 yet. Even if I felt like I was behind or I felt lost, I could take time. I could figure this out. And that was actually pretty exciting, because when suddenly you realize you have every possibility in front of you, it's nothing but potential. I mean, it's total chaos, but it's also total freedom. Except Not quite, because I still had a business to run, I had people to pay and all that stuff. So I had to keep working like everything was fine. And I just started reading more and more philosophy and chewing on this question. And like I also realized I had to return to other art forms that I kind of let slip over the years. And that led me to realize I started seeing how I wasn't taking risks in other areas of my life, like songwriting. I was so used to playing guitar on stage, I realized the guitar had become a crutch. And I realized that your artwork and your past work can become stifling and limit your thinking and stop you from taking new risks. So I started experimenting, and then I started collaborating more, and this was awesome. And I joined a radical marching band called the Flaming Trolleys. And by the end of that, I had been a clown, I was a mime, a puppeteer, a hula hoop dancer, a bad one, or basically anything I felt like. And it totally transformed performing for me. So now, whether it's singing or playing music or giving talks like this, I feel so much more free as a result. And that was a really cool bit of growth in that time. I also started to see other things in my life differently too. Like my last talk in the before times was called Code as Art. And it's about how software development is an art form just like any other. It's a creative as much as it's a technical endeavor. And I could also be way more expressive in it than I had been so far. I ended up shutting that company down a few years later in 2011. I shut it down on its 10th birthday, which seemed fitting, it took time to plan the exit and hand clients over to people who could take things on for me. And I still at that point had no idea what I wanted to do. So I took a job for a while, knowing this isn't my forever thing, but it's valuable work and it'll pay the bills and I can continue to experiment and, figure my shit out. So that lasted about 3 years. And that led me to getting to work on the first virtual reality project in Manitoba, or one of the first I know of. It was a virtual welding simulator. And honestly, the tech was janky as hell. It wasn't amazing, like the first Oculus developer kit. And I wasn't that convinced at first, but two of my best friends convinced me to quit my job and start a company with them. We had no idea what we were going to do. Honestly, we just thought, hey, we'll take some contract work on the web side of things and we'll funnel the profits into VR experiments. And we ended up doing about 24 experiments before we landed on what we're actually doing right now. That said, I don't know if I've actually answered the question of what I want to be, but I'm 40 now, and I really like what I'm doing. It actually led me to discover something else about myself and what I'm passionate about, which is that I love making creation tools to help other people make art. And some days I kind of feel like, maybe I don't have the most serious job because I kind of help people make cartoons, basically. But then I remember that holding someone else's art in your hands is a big responsibility. It's a sacred thing you're responsible for. And when you have someone else's creativity and passion that went into making something, I get to help make that possible. To me, that's amazing. And I also started to learn that I'm not my job title or any title that I give myself. I don't have to define myself by that and in answering that question. Like I don't have to be artist, musician, writer, entrepreneur. Like those are labels and that represent parts of who you are, but they don't define you. Your values, your actions define you. Your relationships define you. So yes, I'm a programmer, I'm a songwriter, I'm an artist or whatever. I run a business, but I'm also a friend. I'm a son, I'm a brother, a husband, an uncle, and I'm a community member. Those things, those matter the most. And you can lose sight of that when you're so laser focused on pursuing a goal or a creative pursuit. So what I am ended up being a lot more well-rounded as a result of taking a longer time to figure that out and being open to new possibilities along the way, like quitting the job, or leaving something that just no longer works for you, or moving cities, which I did when I was 18, or grudgingly saying yes to doing talks like this, you know? I also had to learn to stop thinking like I'm the hero in my own journey, contrary to whatever every popular movie might imply. It's also hard not to slip into that line of thinking, particularly as a creative type, because we work with narrative so much that it's hard not to frame your life as one. So now, in my day-to-day, I get to work with actors and comedians and storytellers, and I get to help bring their ideas to life. And I get to work with two of my best friends and a super smart team of people. I get to work in virtual reality, which is a brand new canvas where you can literally be the first to make something. Our company made the first virtual reality board game. We got to make the first VR experience for the Human Rights Museum. And now we're making the first VR virtual TV studio. But VR is super technical, and lots of people can't participate in that, in painting that new canvas, because while they may be great at what they do, they don't necessarily code or know 3D modeling. So by making VR creation tools, we're opening that up, and we're helping artists participate in a new medium that would otherwise be too technical for a lot of them. So now I'm incredibly lucky, and I'm super thankful all the time that I get to do that. As far as takeaways, I'd say that we're all continually discovering ourselves. That never stops, right? And the classics, like old school philosophy, that stuff, have a lot to offer, and they're not nearly as scary as they seem. I you know, my existential crisis aside, perhaps, but the idea is that thousands of years ago, people grappled with the same existential questions that we do, and we can learn a lot about ourselves from what's constant about humanity. We have to be open to new possibilities and new opportunities, even when we don't understand why, or maybe we can't see how they'll turn out. And art isn't just a thing you do, it's everything you do. It's continually creating a better version of yourself. And in the end, it's time spent on the right things with the right people that matters the most. As if we don't step back and see that we're more than just an artist and nurture those other things too, we can lose touch with what ultimately makes for a richer life, and consequently richer art. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Thanks, John. That was very inspiring. I'm sort of, I'm not a morning guy, so my thoughts are still sort of scrambled. But I do want to say I'm glad to know that when you guys were doing the Creative Manitoba website, that we were funneling cash into your VR experience. Because making a website for a nonprofit arts organization, well, there's lots of cash involved, right?
Can be. There was one big, it wasn't you guys, but it was one big anchor thing that kind of launched us and gave us that flexibility in particular. And yeah, I'm really thankful for all that stuff. Just kind of, you know, the what's it called? I forget the word for it, but like the synchronicity almost, where things sort of happen, you know, for a reason.
Well, it was interesting though, because you guys launched us as an organization on a path towards online learning. Because that was part of what Campfire Union was doing was online learning, and so we were. When you left, it was sort of like, oh, okay. Well, all of a sudden, instead of relying on you guys, we had to figure it out, and so I think that was it was very helpful for us, because you know that became a big part of what we did, and then COVID hit, and it was all we did. So
I'm glad. Yeah, it was getting to work with the previous company before we left. Like, I got a crash course in adult education and training and all that stuff, and that informed a lot of my thinking, and I see a lot of value in teaching and helping people.
So, we have a few brief moments for some questions, and I see there's a Q&A function up on the side of your screen beside the chat. If you click on that, And we do have a question here from Christine. How does creating canvases for others to be creative also feed your creativity?
That, I think, changes how you see it in a couple ways. First, just you get to work with other artists, so you're kind of and you're not in the driver's seat for that. Like, you have to sort of honor their vision, and you have to see what they're trying to make, and not just like try to steamroll it with your idea. Because I'm not necessarily a strong collaborator. This has been a process my whole life that way, but helping others make something kind of opens your eyes to their way of thinking. And making the tools to do that kind of means you have to dissect the process, and you have to really start understanding that. And whenever you learn something new about a process, it changes your approach. And then maybe you go, oh, that was really cool. I need to try that in my next thing, and I'm going to experiment with that. And so that's opened things up. Even like from VR has opened things up on the musical side for me, because I can do spatialized experiments and play with sound in a physical space now, which is really neat. So yeah, it's helped a lot, actually.
There's another question I'm going to get to, but in my position at Creative Manitoba, we support artists and we support arts organizations. But I find sometimes my job is kind of like I'm a bureaucrat. I'm an office clerk because I'm doing the back end sort of stuff, and I'm not like, I have my own artistic practice, but I'm not actually helping those artists with their creativity. I'm helping them figure out how to create a career from it. And so there's this weird, I've had to find some different rewards. When I used to work in the music industry, it was like we would record a CD, we would do a show. There was that creative payoff. When you're building a support network for artists and you're not directly involved, or maybe you are directly involved in their creative process using your tool, how does that feel to you to sort of put it out there and let it go and let somebody else play with it and be creative?
I think it's something I've been doing for a long time. So my previous software helped people publish on the web, and I've made like various things that I just keep falling into this, helping make tools. So sometimes I feel like, I just want more free time. I want to make my own stuff here. Or I want to like get my hands dirty in in other aspects of the art than code. But I've learned like to sort of love the coder in me in that sense. Like I've realized how creative of an endeavor writing software is. So I think I've grown an appreciation for the roles that, like, sometimes I think of myself as a plumber laying down the pipes and stuff so that the data gets where it needs to go, so someone can, just speak, and then someone halfway across the world that they're telling jokes back and forth with can hear each other. But the creativity involved in making that work within the constraints of what we do is actually pretty empowering. So I really love that now.
Awesome. So there's a question here from the Q&A. Would love to get your thoughts on how can we get your message to young people who feel pressure to figure it all out and who think of the labels that define them?
I think screw the labels, and you don't have to figure it out right away. You don't have to. What you figure out can evolve a lot. Like in working with people over the years, one thing I've noticed is a lot of people's careers jump from thing to thing. And so they might have started out, like teaching. They might have started out, doing this, but then next thing you know, they're administrating something, and now they've taken up like painting, and now they paint, or now they do. So people bounce around more than you think, and everything you do kind of stacks. So it's not like learning one thing means now you've wasted it and now you can't learn the other thing. It'll probably inform the next thing you do in some unexpected way. And taking the time to figure it out was the best thing I did. Like I was so sure of myself for so long, and I sort of felt like I'd already had things figured out, but I really didn't. I just wasn't taking the time to listen. And making art especially is, I think, mostly a matter of listening. And like even when it's your own song, you're kind of listening. It's like that little kernel in your subconscious, and then you've got to tease it out and to get the whole picture. But that's a listening activity. So I think the most important thing is just listen to yourself, participate, but don't worry about that participation pigeonholing you.
Awesome. Here's another one. What's your favorite art medium?
My passion will always be music. It's just the thing that's kind of my everything. It encompasses, like, it's technical and the mixing and the audio side of it and understanding how to layer and make it all work together. It's both a verbal language, like there's singing and there's words, so there's poetry and there's actually playing, and you get to do it with people, and the feeling of, like, being in a crowd and seeing an artist and sharing that moment is just this magical thing where you feel like, wow, I'm on the same level as like 1,000 people. You can tell I miss being in live crowds. But like that feeling that music gives, I think is like no other. But at this point, I'm also really jazzed about code, and I just absolutely love writing code. I gravitate to it so much in my free time. Even like I sleep, I think about code. I think about, like, what else can I build? What things? And like, what's my next game jam I want to make? And yeah, so it's kind of 50-50, but I'd say music probably edges it out from the emotional standpoint.
So I have two thoughts on music. One is during COVID, there was a real challenge because I like to play music with other people too, and we couldn't get in a room, we couldn't sing together. So different people tried Zoom or different platforms to share music, but the lag was just such that you couldn't actually play music together over the internet. Do you have a solution for that?
I was reading about, there's one called Sonobus. That's software that's specially designed to, like, prioritize the audio. And so if you're in the same city, at least, I wouldn't do it overseas, but if you're in the same city and you have a good connection, supposedly, I haven't tried it yet, but you can actually jam over distance. And that, to me, wow, if that's possible. But I kind of haven't. So I'm not necessarily collaborating super well.
I've looked at a few different platforms, and I've got friends who are audio engineers who spent most of COVID editing audio tracks to video tracks so that they could make those lovely, the symphony all playing in their living rooms together is actually like each individual one, and then it's all edited together. It's painstaking. And another, I'm not sure how much time we have left for questions, but I do have one that I wanted to ask. And if there's anybody else has one more for the Q&A, please pop it in there. But do you have to carve out time to do your own creative work? Like, how do you find time to sort of say, this is work and I'm going to put this aside and now I'm going to focus on my music or my code passion?
Yes, like I don't do a great job of it still. Like one thing that happened when I started the Campfire Union, or we started, I started with Rachel and Les, was I realized I just had no time for like live shows and promoting them and doing all that. So I actually haven't played a proper live show in that time. I still haven't. So one of the realizations in 2019 was that I need to get back to playing live music and doing all that, not knowing there'd be a 2-year hiatus on doing that outside of videos. So that realization was like, I need to find more balance and I need to actually carve out space for my own art again, because my art was so singularly focused on VR. And at least that's now become, at least I write songs, I play, but I recorded a song on last Sunday. I don't think I'd played guitar for a month before that. So I'm obviously not doing a great job of finding that work-life balance, but that ebbs and flows. And like, I'll still make music here and there. And then when we're less busy, then I can schedule it in and I can make it a more regular thing. And for a good while, like around late last year, I was playing piano every day and trying to get better at that because I'm such a noob with it. I've always crutched on the guitar, and that actually led to writing a bunch of songs and recording an album full of just me on the piano. And because I just started recording the practices for my reference, and So that, like, a whole piece of art came out of just actually making that time for myself. And I'm hoping to continue finding that life balance, but it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but it's so worth it. Like I always find
Yeah.
that, when you do take that time and everything else in your life finds an equilibrium. Like I paint and play music, and when I do take out that time, it's like, oh, okay, wow, I feel way better. I sleep better. I live better. I'm happier. So
Yeah, it
we have
changes your demeanor.
one last question in the Q&A, and then I think we're gonna have to move along and finish with the last bit of music. So here's the question: is what's integral to your work as an artist, and what inspires your art?
Like I said, listening is kind of like, art should say something. I feel like art's a conversation with the world around you. So if you're not listening, you're not participating in that conversation. It shouldn't just be like, it's a conversation with yourself. So sometimes you're just saying what's been brewing inside for a while, but all of our lives are just bouncing off of each other. And so finding, like, getting to the root of what I'm trying to say early on in the process, and not necessarily having the full answer to it, but kind of having that kernel and coming back to that and going, okay, so if I'm trying to say this, then how that can often, like, I talk in songwriting. I was a part of a songwriting circle here. We had the Manitoba Songwriting Circle I used to go to back in the day, and they kept saying, write to a theme. Like, just, even if you don't want to write that theme, just write a song to that. It's good practice to get into. And I always kind of poo-pooed it, and I never really did that well. And then all of a sudden it clicked. I'm like, what if I write a whole album of songs that happen in the same room, different people? And so I wrote an album of, like, songs in the same motel room. And you have to continue to the theme, but it starts to become it becomes your guiding light in the dark, trying to figure out where you're going next. And now when I have, like, second verse syndrome, where I've got a good chorus and I've got, like, a lead up to it, and now I'm stuck in a song, and I'm like, how do I get through this? I come back to that, and I come back to the structure of storytelling as well. So, like, storytelling in a song is often kind of like the Forrest Gump movie, where you start kind of in 3/4 of the way through, and then you go back and you reflect on the past, and you tell a bit of that, and then you catch up to the present, and then maybe you move forward a little, or maybe you conclude. And that, so the structure kind of helps inform the what you need to say next, but also knowing what you're trying to say. And
Right.
So that's kind of my thinking on that.
So it's sort of it's a process, right? The muse strikes, but there's a process that you follow to get from where you're going to the end. I just one last little anecdote was that I had a friend who was a songwriter, and he used to get invited to the Asper School of Business to teach songwriting to MBA students. And it wasn't to teach the MBA students how to write songs. It was to show them that being creative had structure and process and was hard work. And then you take that idea and you work at it, and you have the structures. And so being creative is something that anybody can be if you understand the structures and the processes. And you have to follow the muse, though, right?
Absolutely. Sometimes the best songs pop out all fully formed almost, and you're just like, well, that was a freebie. And you got to be thankful for those too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, John. It's been awesome to say hello, and it's been a while since you and I have chatted, and it's great to hear what you're up to and hear your story. And so I'm going to invite everybody to stick around. We've got one last song from Kendra Kay.
Awesome.
And I'd also, before we get into that, or we'll get into that, and then we're going to be, we'll have a few minutes afterwards if you want to stick around and jump into a table and continue the conversation. Those will be open for a little while longer. And please remember to join us on December 17th for the theme Invisible with speaker Ashley Lodge. So I'm sort of lost in my notes here. Here we go. It's Kendra Kay's song is Wild. So again, sway, move, get up, dance, or move yourself. Just however you feel. So thank you very much, John. And here is the last song by Kendra Kay. And again, we'd invite you to stick around after the song to chat.
You got the whiskey, I got the red wine, we got the stars lighting up the midnight sky, hanging high. I got a feeling, you got the feeling, nowhere to be, feels like the perfect time to cross that line. I wanna start a fire and just watch it grow. Heartbeat to heartbeat, I wanna be the reason you lose control. Surrendering slowly, shut the world out, set the night free, let it rain down, baby, love me wild. Caught in the rush, counting the kisses, your kind of love, it's got me giving in, skin on skin. Ain't no borders, ain't no fences, ain't nobody else I want right now. I want right now. I wanna start a fire and just watch it grow. Heartbeat to heartbeat, I wanna be the reason you lose control. Surrendering slowly, shut the world out, set the night free, let it rain down, baby, love me wild. Baby, love me wild. Wild like lightning, wild like horses running. Give it all you got, get a little lost in the moment. I wanna start a fire and just watch it grow. I wanna be the reason you lose control. Surrender it slowly, shut the world out, set the night free, let it rain down, baby, love me wild. Baby, love me wild. Wild like lightning, wild like horses running
All right. Thanks, everybody. I got my assistant here this morning, and we're going to go to the tables now. And if not, have a great day and a great weekend, and we'll see you December 17th. Take care, everyone.